Good evening, and welcome to another edition of Aussie Man Reads. I'm your host, Ryan Aussie Smith, voted #1 creamiest voice on Twitch 3 years running. I'm a voice actor, a Twitch streamer, and you can find me on Twitch by searching Aussie Man Plays. I'm also your host for tonight's reading, Mochi and Umeboshi, the 6th chapter from the Bram Stoker Award finalist book Bittersweets by Angela Yuriko Smith. This story does have some elements of self-harm and graphic violence, so if these are things you would rather not listen to, now is your time to click out. Aussie Man Reads is sponsored by Authortunities, a weekly calendar of author opportunities for busy writers who need to know who, how much, and when is the deadline on Substack. You can subscribe at authortunities.substack.com or follow the links in the description. In the last chapter, we revisited our anonymous friend from the first chapter, who is now an aficionado bordering on junkie returning for a bizarro circus death. And now, let's revisit the Bittersweets. I believe today we will be visiting with twin sisters celebrating their birthday, but only one will walk away with a gift. I don't know about you, but sometimes find getting together with family tense. If you'd like to read along, the book is available to read on Kindle Unlimited. Links in the description. Chapter 6. Mochi and Umeboshi. A well-dressed man and his wife came into the lobby and stopped inside the door. They didn't seem to belong there. They looked conservative. Unlike the usual death devotees that populated the Bittersweets, the woman, navy blue pencil skirt and tailored jacket, pointed to Azrael, waiting behind the lobby desk, and spoke in a murmur. The man followed her gesture, giving a curt nod and stepping forward. "We have an appointment for our two girls," he said, "Mochi and Umeboshi." Azrael looked up at the clock on the wall and then down at her appointment book. The woman had walked behind him. She looked nervous and uncomfortable. She glanced around the lobby in discreet peeks before turning her attention to the girl behind the desk. "We call them Mochi and Ume," said the woman. "Sweet rice and sour plum." Her husband pursed his lips and went on as if she hadn't spoken. "We have an appointment for them." Azrael studied the couple for a moment, trying to assess their intentions. "I see the girls are both legal as of today. Is this a surprise for them?" The woman nodded and smiled. "It is to bond them," said the man. "They were born together. They should be close. This is their last chance to connect as sisters before adulthood." "This is why we call them Mochi and Ume," said the woman. "Mochi is full of love and laughter. Ume is sour. Just a small bit of bitterness goes a long way." She flashed a quick smile, and then it vanished just as fast. Azrael could see where the girls had gotten their opposing personalities. "So, they have an appointment." The father was brisk and efficient. "They will be here any minute unless I tell the driver otherwise." He pulled his phone from a breast pocket and tapped in his unlock code. "Yes," said Azrael. "Their appointment is confirmed." She found the correct keycard and slid it across the counter. The man returned the phone to his pocket and picked up the keycard. "They may go directly to the room when they arrive." "Good," he said. He turned his back to Azrael and walked to the center of the lobby to stand in front of the entrance. His wife gave an apologetic smile before following him. They both stood still, waiting. The next 5 minutes crawled by with Azrael trying not to look at the living mannequins that had taken residence in her lobby. The woman had moved closer to take his arm, and then they both became motionless until a car pulled up outside. The woman made a small coo of relief as the driver opened the door. A pretty girl exited the car, grinning with excitement. She thanked the driver before turning back to gesture dramatically. She turned to look up at the building, eyes casting their way past the Bittersweet's lighted marquee to to the 13th floor above, and then she clapped her hands like a little girl before bursting into the lobby.
"The bittersweets! Are you going to let us die?"
she asked. She rushed to her parents and squeezed them both, oblivious to any response. The mother brushed her daughter's hair back and kissed her cheek. Even the father grinned down at her.
"This is going to be so amazing."
Another girl exited the car. She ignored the driver's offered hand. Azrael watched her through the glass as she too scanned the hotel's facade. Her neck craned backwards, seeking the top floor. Calmly, she looked back down, through the glass doors where she could see her parents and Mochi hugging. She watched, expressionless, and then her lips peeled back to reveal perfect teeth. There was no joy or humor in this expression. The grin was crooked and twisted, more snarl than smile. Her eyes lit up with a fervid shine, glinting in the fading light. A shadow slipped over Ume's face as she watched her family hugging. And then whatever emotion she had let play across her face was shuttered. She pushed through the door.
"Ume, I wondered where you were."
The mother disengaged herself from Mochi's embrace.
"Do you like your birthday surprise?"
She dropped her arms to her side and fiddled with the seams of her skirt. Mochi was oblivious to the emotional chill that emanated from her sister.
"Umeboshi! We get to have our first grown-up death."
She ran the few steps to her sister in a very ungrown-up manner and hugged her as well. Like a wriggly puppy, her excitement was impossible to stifle. Ume didn't protest the embrace, but she didn't respond either. Mochi's natural joy bubbled up from some happy well inside her, independent. "Are we dying separately or together?" asked Ume over her sister's shoulder. Her father pulled a keycard from his pocket and held it up. "1 room, 2 deaths," he said. Ume shook her sister off and walked to her father. She plucked the card from his hand and looked at the room number. "The penthouse. Thank you, father. Thank you, mother. We'll enjoy this present." Her voice was flat.
"Umeboshi, please don't be so distant. You are a woman. This is a special day."
Her mother reached forward without taking a step, bending at the waist, and touched Ume's arm. The girl looked down at her mother's hand as if it confused her, and then back up at her mother's eyes. "I am very excited, mother," said Ume in the same flat tone. She smiled then, the same fevered dark expression that Azrael had witnessed earlier. Her mother dropped her hand and stood straight.
"Happy birthday then, dears,"
she said. She looked up at her husband.
"Shall we sit and wait?"
He nodded. Taking her arm, he escorted her to a sitting area off to one side without another word to the girls. Undeterred, Mochi grabbed her sister's arm and pulled her towards the elevators. Ume allowed herself to be pulled in. As the doors closed, they watched their mother half raise up from the couch. Their father, who had settled back into his mannequin state, looked up at her surprised.
"I love you, my sweet Mochi,"
she called. Her eyes glittered wetly in the lobby lamps. She caught sight of Ume staring back with a dark expression.
"And Ume?"
The elevator doors closed, cutting off her words. The girls were alone in the elevator. They were passing the 6th floor before either of them spoke.
"She loves you too,"
said Mochi. Ume made no reply.
"I know she didn't say it, but I'm sure she meant it,"
Mochi continued. She was smiling, but the effect was less sweet in the dim light of the elevator. There was a dangerous sharpness to her, like a kitten playing.
"They would probably love you more if you weren't always so gloomy."
Still, Ume said nothing. They passed the 11th floor. The elevators stopped moving at the 13th floor.
"No wonder nobody likes you,"
said Mochi as the door slid open. She stepped out and whistled. Ume followed her. They were in a lush waiting room. their shoes sunk deep into thick crimson carpet. The wallpaper was a textured cream color with geometric designs of pressed gold foil. Double doors of polished zebra wood and brass were before them. Ume stepped forward and slid the keycard in the lock. The door popped open with a click. Both girls exhaled. They were no strangers to wealth. Their parents had always provided them with the best of everything, but their parents were highly conservative, never ostentatious. The walls of their house were cream and white trim. The most exotic item in their house had been the dining room table, made of burled wood. But even that was accompanied by a beige upholstered chairs and white dishes. This room was completely different from anything they had experienced. Like the door, the furniture was made of zebra wood and brass. The lush carpet continued into the penthouse apartment, bringing a riot of warmth and color to the two girls who had grown up without it. A red velour fainting couch could be seen through an open door. Across it was a throw in leopard print. Ume walked through to inspect the next room. It was set up to be a private theatre. A large screen was set into the wall. A comfortable half-circle couch faced it. Heavy red curtains were hung along the wall. Ume walked to them and groped in the heavy folds until she found what she was looking for. A glass door that led to the balcony she had seen from below. She went to the rail and looked down. Satisfied, she went back inside, leaving the door open behind her. She rejoined her sister in the main room. All the furniture had been removed and replaced by a low, Japanese-style table in the middle. 2 cushions sat on either side of the table. A kimono was folded neatly on each cushion. On the table was a pot of tea, 2 small cups with no handles, and 2 short blades. Beneath each blade was a small card. Beneath each kimono was a braided red cord. "Looks like a party," said Mochi. "A boring party." She walked to the small table and chose a kimono. It was white silk with pink and red cherry blossoms embroidered across it. She draped it over her shoulders. "But at least we get to keep these." Ume came over and unfolded the other one. It was a black silk with golden orange chrysanthemums embroidered across it. She held it up to her face, feeling the smooth material against her skin. With her face covered, she gave a secret smile and inhaled the scent of incense. "They had to include one for you," she heard her sister say. Her smile was lost in the folds of silk. She let the robe fall and drape over her arm. Her face was as expressionless as always. "I know," she said. "I just want to make sure it's been laundered." She bent over and picked up the card and read while Mochi stripped and replaced her outfit with the kimono. She turned before a mirrored wall to admire herself. The clothes she had worn were discarded in a pile. "The blades are called tanto," said Ume. "We're supposed to slice our stomachs from left to right." She read on and then bent over to pick up the cord. "We're supposed to tie our knees together with this so we can die in a ladylike position." She raised her eyebrows and looked at her sister, dangling the cord. Mochi giggled. "That's dumb. I thought we'd get something exciting, not some lame traditional death." She rolled her eyes. "Leave it to lame traditional parents." She turned away from the mirror and walked to the table to pick up the blade. "I should just kill you. That would be exciting. Why do we have to kill ourselves?" "I had the same thought before we even came upstairs," said Ume. A whisper of a smile played at the corners of her mouth. She dropped the card and picked up the other knife. "I could finally get rid of you," said Mochi. "Just because we shared a womb doesn't mean we have to share a life." "What we've shared can hardly be called a life," said Ume. "You've made sure to keep me pushed into the corner and out of your spotlight." "You're still here," said Mochi, "so I haven't pushed hard enough, I guess.
but just wishful thinking. Neither of us can kill the other permanently. Just the resuscitators would just bring us both back. I suppose you're right, said Ume. But we could try. Mochi sniffed. You mean I could try? You've never beaten me at anything ever. Ume just shrugged. You're right. You'd win anyway. She tossed her kimono back onto its cushion. This is boring. Come see the movie screen in the next room. It's our own personal theater. Oh, really? Mochi dropped her blade on the table and wandered into the next room. Ume followed. This is cool. Mochi sat down on the half-circle couch. Turn out the lights and let's see what they have. Ume obediently dimmed the lights, while her sister turned on a small screen set into one end of the couch. She bent over the touchpad, making selections. In front of her, the wall lit up, and music filled the room. Behind her, Ume was smiling again. She walked up behind her sister on the couch and looked down at her bent form. In her hand, she still held the tanto. In a swift motion, she grabbed a handful of Mochi's hair and pulled her head back. Ow, bitch! Mochi's voice barely carried over the loud soundtrack that surrounded them. Upside down, she scowled at Ume and reached her hands up to release her hair from her sister's grip. Ume raised the tanto above her sister and brought it down into her stomach, sinking the short blade to the hilt. She pulled hard to the right, twisting the knife as she cut. She let go, leaving the blade sunk into Mochi's abdomen. Still holding her hair, she dragged her sister sideways off the couch, onto the floor, and across the room. The white kimono was already soaked, the cherry blossoms vanishing into the bright blood. Ume pulled her sister onto the balcony and let go. Mochi doubled over, clutching the blade with one hand. The other she raised up to Ume. She pointed a shaking finger at her. Get help, stupid. It hurts. Ume's face split open in a wide grin. Her eyes were wide with excitement. Mochi, guess what? She started pulling her sister upright and pinned her hunched form against the railing. What? Gasped Mochi. Her mouth hung open, slack, and her eyes were dulling. I win, said Ume. She heaved her sister's body over the rail to drop freely until it met with the street, 13 floors below. She watched and savored the feeling of individuality that washed over her. She was no longer a twin. The night air smelled like freedom. Ume walked back inside, through the loud theater room and into the main area. She picked up her black kimono as the mirrored wall split open. Several individuals in jumpsuits spilled out. Is she over the balcony? How did she fall? Someone asked Ume, but she didn't answer. She slipped the kimono over her clothes while the team rushed past her to the next room. She heard voices crackle over the radio. Get the team to the ground. She's outside. We won't reach her in time. Stick her anyways. We have to get her back up. Ume walked back to the elevator, still smiling. She pressed the button to go downstairs and caught her reflection in the brass. It was distorted, but for the first time in her life, she saw only one reflection. Best birthday ever, she told it. The elevator doors opened, and she stepped inside as an only child. And that concludes our story for today. I hope you enjoyed this reading of Bram Stoker Award finalist book, Bittersweets, by Angela Yuriko Smith. I am Ryan Ozzie Smith, and it has been a pleasure to be your host tonight. For my listeners, if you can please take a moment to rate and follow Aussie Man Reads on whatever platform you're listening to. It helps us immensely, and it would be much appreciated. You can also connect with me on Twitch by searching Aussie Man Plays, or click on my link in the description.